Thanks, Sue, and thanks for having us. We were here last February. And I don't know if any of you were aware of it, but we had a play version of one of our first book workshopped at the La Jolla Playhouse, and we came out to watch that. We were fascinated by it. Anybody here see that?
Oh, great.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, it was pretty cool, we thought. And anyway, we got to come in then, and we're back. We're thrilled to be back. Those of you who don't know who we are or how we come to write books together, I will tell you a little bit about us. Ridley will tell you a little bit of him. And I'm a humor writer. That's what I did for most of my career. I still do it. So, have you kids? Have your parents ever embarrassed you? Yeah, let's be honest, parents are embarrassing. And when you're older, you'll embarrass your children, but that's sort of the great circle of life. Each generation embarrasses the generation, but however embarrassing your parents have been to you, it will not compare with how embarrassing I am to my kids. Because my job for many years has been to do stupid things and then write about them. And sometimes these are things that involve my children in a way that they're not comfortable with. I'll tell you one story. It's an absolutely true story. Some years ago, I was at the Miami Herald at work, and I got a call from the Oscar Mayer Corporation saying they were bringing the Wienermobile to Miami. Have you seen a Wienermobile ever? It's a huge hot dog, fiberglass hot dog truck with a loudspeaker. They're actually, for the grown-ups there, the 6 Wienermobiles. This nation leads the world in Wienermobile. Although Iran is developing one. Anyway, they want to get publicity. So they called me up to the Miami Herald and said, you know, we're bringing the Wienermobile to Miami. Would you like to drive it for a day? And I said, heck yes. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to pick my son up at middle school. Here is the moment when this is Rob, my son. His heart is now beating again after the initial reaction to coming in. But if you could imagine, you come out of school and you're with your friends, and you're trying to be cool, and everybody else's mom or dad is driving a normal vehicle, and there's your dad in a gigantic hot dog with a loudspeaker going, "Rob Berry, please report to the Wienermobile." So anyway, that's what I did, and I'd been doing that for many years, writing for newspapers. I'd written some novels, but they were for grown-ups, and I never thought about writing a book for kids, never even had any thought to it. But then I met this guy, and that all changed, and he'll tell you a little bit of how we met.
And I was out killing people. No, not really. I write books about killing people. I write murder mysteries. So that's really what I was doing, and in the course of doing that, thrillers and murder mysteries, I was invited to, I play bass guitar, and I was invited to play bass guitar, excuse me, in a rock and roll band of authors. And have any of you guys heard of The Simpsons? Well, Matt Groening of The Simpsons, who created it, is in our band. And so I got this phone call after I'd agreed to do this, having no idea who would be in the band. I got a phone call that said, it's going to be Dave Barry, Stephen King, Matt Groening, Amy Tan, Barbara Kingsolver, and you. And I about fell out of my chair, you know, and me. And we went to Anaheim, California. We all flew ourselves to Anaheim, California. We were going to do this to raise money for a good cause. And we were sort of coached. We didn't get any better. We were just a terrible band. But we met each other, and we had a bunch of fun. Here's Stephen King and Amy Tan on stage. Dave plays rhythm guitar, Stephen plays rhythm guitar, I play bass guitar, and Amy plays lycra. Does a very good job. And to show you the editorial quality of this band, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Even 17 years later, we were still playing, and this is how good we've gotten. It's kind of disappointing when you work that hard, and that's how they walk in front of you as they're leaving. But, we've had a great time, and we've gotten to know each other. I'm turning it back to Dave.
So anyway, we wrote these books, and the reason we wrote the books is not because we had both said we were going to write children's books, but because Ridley had an idea, or he perceived an idea. And that's the thing about writers, you have to have ideas to come up with plots, and Ridley is really good at seeing plot ideas around him. I'm going to give you an example from his thriller, scary books that he writes, because I saw him have an idea for one once, and it was pretty terrifying.
Do not try this at home.
It was terrifying for me. Ridley has a place in Idaho, and I'd gone to visit him. We got in late the night before. We wanted to get stuff for breakfast, so we went to a little market in a little town called Haley, Idaho. And I just wanted coffee, because it was early in the morning and there was no coffee in Ridley's house. So I went to this machine, and you kids have probably seen these coffee grinding machines in the supermarket, where you take a bag of coffee beans, pour them into a grinder, and you put the bag underneath, and it grinds the coffee through, end up with coffee grinds in a bag. And so that's what I was doing. I was grinding beans. And Mr. Psychopath comes up, and he sees me doing this. Now, at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm thinking coffee. Here's what he's thinking. He looks at what I'm doing, and he goes, you know, somebody could put poison into the coffee grinder and walk away. And the next person to come along would pour beans on top of the poison. So when the beans ground through, there would be a layer of poison at the bottom of the bag. And that person would take it home and make pots of coffee, and the last pot would kill everybody who drank from it. And nobody would ever know who did it. And then he walked away, leaving me grinding my beans. You know, and it occurred to me then, Ridley's a tea drinker. You know? But my point is, that's the way he thinks. He's a writer. All his life, he's been looking for plot ideas. I've seen him do that more than once. He's always having ideas. But because he does that, even though he's a thriller writer, he had an idea, or saw an idea, that turned into a...
Yeah, I was reading to my, our eldest daughter. She was about 5 at the time. She might have been 6. And we were reading Peter Pan. Peter Pan was originally a play, and then it was so successful, J.M. Barrie wrote a short story that followed the play, and that was so successful he wrote a small book, and what they call a novella, like a 100-page book. And we were reading the 100-page book, and we were maybe 8 pages into it, and she covered up the page with her hand and said, "Hey, Dad, how did Peter meet Captain Hook in the first place?" And I went, wow, you know, in the classic, there's a boy who can fly, and that's never explained. He never grows old, that's never explained. He can remove himself from his shadow and leave it behind, that's never explained. He has this little personal assistant he travels around with, she's never explained. The pirates are chasing him, Page's question, that's never explained. It seemed to me there was a whole story about a boy who becomes Peter Pan before the Peter Pan story got going. And about a week later, I was down staying at Dave's house. We were going to play one of these performances where we're awful. And I mentioned I was thinking about writing some sort of story that explained how a boy became Peter Pan. And Dave seemed somewhat interested. I said, you know, Dave, you've never grown up past 12. And I murder people for a living. So, you know, neither of us is perfectly suited to do this, but maybe together. And he said, I'm in. And we decided to write a book together, which isn't done very often. So we outline the books so that we know exactly what's going to happen in them. And then once we know that, we divide the book by characters. One of us takes the sunny, cheery, happy-go-lucky, humorous kind of childlike characters. One of us takes the piratical, psychopathic type of character. And if it's your chapter, you write a draft of it, send it to the other guy. He can do whatever he wants to it. Send it back, 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 back. We go back and forth 5, 6, 7 times, and then we move on to the next chapter. So that's kind of what we did. But in the process, this little, what we thought would be 90-page book turned into a 550-page book by the time Tinkerbell arrived. And we realized, wow, this is a bigger story than we thought. Disney got a hold of it, and when Disney gets a hold of your stuff, it sort of changes everything.
So we ended up writing, it was going to be a trilogy. We've now written 4 books in the trilogy. Not good at math, but and we've gone. It's really kind of changed our lives. We still do the other kind of writing that we both used to do, but we do this a whole lot more than we ever thought we would, and it's been really fun. Most of the time it's fun. Sometimes it's a little bit scary to be writing children's books. Our 3rd book was called Peter and the Secret of Rundoon, and had a scene in it where there's a mean king in this country called Rundoon, and he has this huge snake that he uses to control people. And it's in this one big scene, and we were reading that. When we talk about that book, we would read a chapter from it, as we're going to read to you guys in a minute. And we would read a chapter that involved this snake. And so we've gone around doing that, and we're reading in a bookstore in Miami, which is where I live. And what we didn't know was that the bookstore had rented a real snake to a people. Because Miami happens to have a lot of snakes, big snakes. If you ever need to rent a snake, Miami's your city. For a wedding, a bar mitzvah, any occasion that calls for a big snake, you can get snakes there. So